Hello Namibia, and welcome to your daily lunchtime show where we get to catch up on current events and headlines that are in the news. My name is Priska Nyolo and you are watching NMH at 1. We do apologize for starting late today, but it is for a good reason. On an interesting note, today our show is taking place at our remote studio, which is out in the field. That means we are out in the open, so please don't be alarmed if you see my hair flying around or even if you can hear the sound of cars driving past. That just means that we are out in the open, and we know that our NMH viewers are always loyal and supportive, and thank you so much for understanding. And on that note, let us take a look at our first story today. No travel without COVID-19 certificate. Please note that the police will only allow you to apply for a travel permit if you are able to submit a COVID-19 test that proves you to be free of the coronavirus. And it is important to understand that the test may not be older than 72 hours. That is a rule which will not be broken, as stated on the notice at the Windhoek police station in the Commerce region. Next story. Elephant dung has no medicinal use. Just as a precaution, please remember that the continued speculation on internet media sites and even the press that the inhalation and or taking in of the elephant dung in any possible form or manner is fake news. The Minister of Health and Social Services, Dr. Kalumbi Shangula, has stated categorically that this is not true, as currently there is still not a remedy for COVID-19. So please do not be fooled into thinking that this will work and be defrauded of your money in the process while we're already in these trying, taxing times. For our COVID-19 news. In today's COVID-19 monitor, we have summarized the quarantine data for the 14 regions as applicable to the previous week. On Saturday, the 15th of August, the total number of people quarantined since March reached 8,000. 80% of these people have been discharged during the past 5 months. A total of 899 individuals entered quarantine last week, while 1,282 people were allowed to go home. Changes indicated in each region of the summary include corrections made by health authorities, which occur from time to time. The 3 regions with the largest groups in quarantine are Erongo with 601, Commerce with 368, and Karas with 135. In the Othonjupa and Ohangwena regions, less than 10 persons remain in quarantine. The biggest movements during the week took place in the following regions. In Erongo, 404 people were discharged while 203 entered quarantine. A total of 125 persons entered quarantine in the Karas region, while 163 people were discharged. The big changes in the Omaheke, which is 231 entries and 117 exits, were largely due to corrections applied to the numbers of the prior week. Lastly, in the Zambezi region, 103 people started with quarantine, while 106 people were discharged again. And on that note, let us go for a quick ad break, and I'll be right back.
So here we are, just you and me. I'm overwhelmed when you touch me. You talk so sweet, I hear the sound. 'Cause when you do, my feet won't touch the ground.
And now we bring you a few video clips from around the country. COVID-19 curfew and its impact. NMH journalist Yana Marie Smith spoke to various people about the COVID-19 curfew and its impact. Yana Marie commented on her video as follows. Curfew in the time of COVID-19 are not unique to Namibia, but some Namibians are worried that a curfew is just another draconian law that limits the rights of Namibians. Others again say that the curfew is necessary as many people simply do not abide by the laws. Have a look for yourself.
Nee, die besluit, hulle het net 'n goeie besluit geneem. Daai besluit is nie 'n probleem nie. Agter is te vroeg, maar op hierdie oomblik, daar is nie probleme omdat mense gedra nie vir hulle nie. Hulle sit ook nie mask op nie, en soms hulle is ook baie in die Shabin. Even 20 mense is op een plek, en mense ook van die bar, hulle maak ook hulle sit hulle die tyd wat hulle moet toemaak, hulle sit die ander mense binnekant en die bar dan sluit hulle vir hulself daar binnekant, maar wat nie nodig is nie, omdat ons moet vir ons gesond, ons moet die COVID-19 ernstig vat, omdat dit is nie 'n speelding nie.
An enforced curfew takes us back to being a police state, especially actually in any country, it doesn't matter where. I realize there's a problem with regards to the transmission and the spread of COVID-19. But once you start treating people like babies, it becomes an autocratic state, and then they'll also react like babies. If you don't appeal to people's, ability to make their own decisions, they will behave like babies, and they will break the rules, because that's what kids do. It matches the country, with regards to Namibia, it matches the country's draconian laws, like those against abortion and same-sex marriages. Also, is there any proof that a curfew actually works? Does it actually really curb the spread of the virus? What have we seen in Walvis Bay?
Having the 8 o'clock curfew kind of reminds me of the days when I was at school and my mom used to tell me that I need to be in bed by 8, otherwise I'll be very tired tomorrow morning. I do think that there is some merit in having a 8 o'clock curfew, but to a certain extent it makes me feel like some of my human rights have been taken away from me. I think the fight against COVID is not one that is regulated by law, but rather by each individual's efforts and making sure that they do the best in their abilities to stop this pandemic.
And now we move on to our second video insert. On Tuesday, Risto Kapenda, who is the mayor of Arandis, gave an update on the COVID-19 situation in Arandis near Swakopmund. The town has, amongst others, tested 100 students of Namibia Institute of Mining Technology, also known as NIMT, so as to allow them to return home, and fortunately, they all tested negative.
We facilitated the testing of Namibian Institute for Mining Technology students in order to return home in a bid to decongest the town. We made sure over 100 students were tested, and yesterday the answers came back, and we are very glad that none of the students was positive. It shows that at least up to now Arandis is safe thus far. Of course, we have cases, but given that over 100 students have been tested, none of them is positive, it's a very encouraging phenomenon. Now we are also facilitating them now to get back to their families, because they cannot start school and they've been stuck in Arandis for months without food, without what, and then we gave them food as well. We facilitated food and they got that food. So now we want them to, from yesterday, today, they are now in the process of going back home. That's in a bit to decongest the town. We provided face shields to the students of grade 10 and 11 and 12, as we said. We will continue to assist and facilitate via the local authority disaster committee and all platforms as and when we are required to assist. With the reporting of the COVID-19 cases, Swakopmund, Henry's Bay and Arandis are grouped under the Swakop District Hospital. The community of Arandis will appreciate it if Arandis cases are reported explicitly and direct, in order to stimulate seriousness and preparedness, as well as sensitize the people of Arandis to know that the COVID-19 is really there in Arandis. Everyone in our community needs to be serious, and we need to take it.
And now for our third video insert. Kenya Kambowe sent us a clip of Paulus Vihemba of the National African Students Association, who is the vice president of NASA, not to be confused with the space agency that is. And he spoke to NMH at 1 about the challenges students are faced with and how they assist their colleagues in need. He also spoke about student funding. Do take a look.
Yes, my name is Paulus Viemba, the Vice President of National African Student Association, abbreviated as NASA. We are a student organization that stand for students. We address student matters in terms of what are the students really facing in Namibia. So as a student organization, we have really interacted with the students and we've tried all our level best to ensure that we really intervene in student lives. So as a student organization, we have really done a lot. We have fought on the issue of student funding, whereby we really ensured that each and every student who meet the requirement that is currently in place in terms of the policy and the act. So we have really helped them to find fundings. So currently, this year, last month, we went for a conference that was there to ensure that we go and plan the business strategic plan for NSFAF, to ensure that in the next coming years, this business, the policies that are going to be implemented to ensure that all the students are inclusive and in terms of VTCs and the universities. So to talk of some of the challenges that the youth are facing in general, and then in particular the students, we have the matter of of course is the funds, where we find out that NSFAF is really finding its level best to ensure that it drops out some of the students, they are not funded, and then also you find out that some of the students are not really well educated on the matter, and as a result they are really rejected. So that is a really big concern, because many of these students, they end up not going to school, being not funded. As a result, they drop out. So and also some of the things, the delayment of funds. We come to a point whereby a student is really need the money, but at the time when the money is paid, it's really late. So it becomes useless on what the money is gonna be used, because imagine someone getting the money in December, so that money is just used on something else. So coming to down here, you find out that the main issue that students are facing is the issue of accommodation, whereby the accommodation, those ones that are renting outside, is becoming very expensive in such a way that a student who's coming from a poor background and the money is not paid on time, you find out that the student is bombarded with a lot of debt because he's unable to pay the money. So this is really something that you really also need to be controlled in such a way that the students they pay less money, and the student
And now let's take a look at the front pages of our newspapers today. On its page 1, the Allgemeine Zeitung reports passing of the COVID-19 peak at the coast. The Minister of Health and Social Services, Dr. Kalumbi Shangula, is currently still cautious in his approach, but even he has now commented on the noticeable decrease in diagnosed cases in the coastal strip of the Irongo region. In the meantime, 13 persons related to Windhoek Prison have been diagnosed with COVID-19. The Republican focuses on what they term to be a white elephant, the speed cameras found along all roads in Namibia. They are clearly not functioning and neither are they in use, but they were supposed to be the big improvement in our road safety system at a cost of 12 million Namibian dollars. The Namibian Sun also leads with the wasted 12 million Namibian dollar camera system. The system was apparently installed 4 years ago and they were never put into operation. On its front page, the Namibian again leads with fish rot related news, shining the light on 50 million Namibian dollars, which was supposedly earned by the government through the sale of fishing quotas. The money was intended for social programs, but apparently ended up in the trust accounts of the law firms De Klerk, Horn and Kutsia Incorporated and Sisana Manje and Co., from where it was allegedly awarded to persons and parties linked to the fish rot scandal. The New Era on its page 1 focuses on the 13 persons diagnosed with COVID-19 in the Windhoek prison. 1 officer and 12 inmates have been found to be COVID-19 positive. The prison commissioner, General Rafael Hamunyela, told New Era that he sees no way in which he can decongest the prisons and they cannot get this outbreak under control. And now we move on to the inside of our country's newspapers. And because we mostly read identical reports, this time we only focus on the 3 NMH dailies. On page 2 of the Allgemeine Zeitung, you can read up On page 2 of the Allgemeine Zeitung, you can read up on a gypsum production plant in Arandis that is in the process of getting ready for the export market. The mayor of Arandis, Risto Kapenda, provided more insight into further plans for this town outside Swakopmund. The Republican on its page 3 reports of the dire situation at the Ministry of Health and Social Services, which employs only 4 qualified psychiatrists with a mere 300 social workers in attendance throughout Namibia. And on its page 3, the Namibian Sun bemoans the fact that the financial situation of Grootfontein is what is termed as a mess. Apparently, there is infighting between councillors and the 2 main officials of the town, specifically the CEO Kisco Sinvula and the finance executive Eleni Haingumbi. The latter accuses the former of aiming to abuse his position and to gain access to the town's coffers to enrich himself. The Namibian reports on its page 3 of renewed tension between the city of Windhoek and Paratus. The municipality again accuses Paratus of continuing to install its cables around the capital city, in the process flaunting the city's rules and regulations. New Era carries a report on page 3, according to which the former Minister of Home Affairs, Pendukeni Vulaitana, cautions against a probe into the so-called Lubango dungeons, where the SWAPO party continues to stand accused of having mistreated their own and accusing them of treason and similar political wrongs. That is it for our newspaper inserts. Let us go for a quick ad break and I'll return with news of our interview. And in today's interview, Okhone Tlhache of the Namibian Sun spoke to the economist Mali Likukela. Listen to what they had to say.
Good afternoon and welcome to NMH everyone. My name is Okhone Tlhache and joining me in studio is independent economist Mali Likukela. Good afternoon, sir, and welcome. The Bank of Namibia released some rather disappointing GDP figures. What can we attribute to this low growth figure to?
Well, the figures that the Bank of Namibia released should be understood in the context of what is happening in the economy. It was to be expected. However, even some of us, the number caught us very, very by surprise, because they were too far away from what we expected. They are quite disappointing and quite frightening because they reveal quite a number of information. Okay. To begin with, the numbers that came out from Bank of Namibia tells a story of an economy that is at a crossline, and that is our economy. So to really go deeper into the number, one must first and foremost understand that these numbers come at the background of an already limping economy, and COVID just came and put the final nail to the coffin. So I was rather disappointed, not surprised, but those are the numbers. That's what we have.
And then looking at those low growth figures, what are the most appropriate responses that government should now sort of try and implement
Hi, I saw you
to turn
on
the
this call.
situation around? Obviously, one can understand that it's probably like turning a big shipping vessel around, but what are the key interventions?
Yeah, maybe to put it into perspective, the Bank of Namibia gave an outlook of the economy in few months to come based on the numbers that came out. So obviously the outlook tells a very grim picture. It tells a story of an economy that is in a depression, which is, it tells a story of an economy that's going to take a bit longer to recover, and it tells a story of an economy that really needs stimulus impetus. It needs serious policy action. And so to answer your question, the Namibian economy needs robust policy action from both government and also from the business sector. So far what we have seen is government have tried everything in their power to put into place stimulus policies to try and resuscitate the economy. However, the challenge has been that the policies that were put in place were based on very little information about the economy and also about the pandemic. So you'll find a bit of mismatch in there. That is why the policy responses or the responsiveness of the economy to those policies hasn't been very much aligned. And that is why we saw these numbers the way they are, even despite the stimulus package that was put in April at the beginning of the crisis.
And then government has put forward this $8.1 billion stimulus package. Obviously, this is in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Now we hear that there's talk of a $4.5 billion loan application that has been made to the International Monetary Fund. With all of that in the kitty, do you think it's appropriate? Do you think it's enough? Do you think more would be needed?
Yeah, you see, like I was saying earlier on, at the beginning of the crisis, at the beginning of the pandemic, neither government nor business had sufficient information to work on. So at the beginning of the crisis, government rushed into pumping 8.1 billion, thinking it is fighting a particular crisis, whereas the crisis, when it begins to unfold in its own totality, we realize that we put the money too early. And so now when we begin to count the bodies, because remember when the 8.1 came in, we had not recorded a single death. So now when we are beginning to count bodies, that's when we need that 8 billion, because we know where we could have used it much, much better. So that being the case, we have approached the IMF for their 4.5 billion. It is my belief that based on the experience of how we spend the 8.1 billion, if the 4.5 billion comes in, we are going to use it more effective than the previous one. So I am of the view that if the 4.5 billion comes, government is going to put it into use, especially the frontline services, to buy protective clothes, protective equipment, to put into place structures and infrastructure to support the fight, because now we have more information about the disease and about the economy, the impact it has on the economy, and going forward. And we can also benefit from the lessons of other countries around us, South Africa, China, the US. So we cannot say it's too much money, because we need every cent we can. However, we must be mindful of the fact that this money is not for free. At some point, we will need to pay this money back. Do we have a plan already in place for us to pay this money back? We shouldn't forget that after COVID, there's life. And these are the things that I would want to see also coming into the policy making process of government.
And then the Bank of Namibia just this morning had a monetary policy announcement where a reduction in the repo rate was announced.
Yes.
Was that expected on your end?
Yes, it was. On my end, it was very much expected, because number one, the reason, the basis of this decision are based on a few things that are well known. Number one, the basis of monetary policy is based on the framework itself, which is to align our policy with that of South Africa. And we were a few basis points above South Africa, and it made sense for us to get closer to it, because we must be aligned to support the peg. And number two, the Bank of Namibia uses the monetary policy to support the economy. In the long run, the effect of that policy can affect positively the economy. And so in the view of COVID, it makes a lot of sense for Bank of Namibia to cut further. And so today's cut of 25 basis, not only did it bring our policy closer to that of South Africa, but it provides confidence into the economy, into the market, that the government or the Bank of Namibia wants to stimulate the economy. So with those in mind, and also putting into consideration the fact that the inflation rate has gone down, it creates space for Bank of Namibia to cut even further. So it wasn't a surprise on my end. And with all things in place, with all things equal, it should provide some level of stimulus also to the economy, although with a lag. But the good thing is, eventually it will filter through into the economy.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Likukela.
Most welcome.
Okay. Thank you for tuning in to NMH 1. Goodbye.
And with that, we have reached the end of our interview and the end of our show as well. I've been your host, Priska Anyolo, and thank you so much for joining us today and bearing with us as we are out here enjoying our show at our remote studio. We hope to see you again at the same time, same place, and please do remember to stay safe and practice social distancing. Please also do stay tuned for a weather update as well. Goodbye.